Hello and welcome to the Edupedia world. In this tutorial, we are going to learn about access modifiers in Java. So let's begin. Access modifiers. So Java provides four types of access modifiers: public, protected, default, and private. A top level class can use just two types of four access control levels that are default or public. And the members, that means data and methods of a class, can use all four. So that signifies the class can either be public or it can be default. Remember that over here we are talking about the top level class. So there is a concept of inner class where a class can also be within a other class. So we are not talking over here about any inner class. We are only talking about the top level class, that is a class which is not inside any other class. So the top level class in a package can only be public or default. And the data members and member functions of the class, that are the instance variable and methods, they can use any of the four access modifiers. Now let's see what is the significance of each of them one by one. So first one is public members. When a method or a variable member is declared public, it means all other classes, regardless of the package they belong to, can access the member, assuming that the class itself is visible. So that means if you declare any data member or member function as public, that means it can be seen to all other classes regardless whether they belong to a particular package or not. So within that project, that class will be visible everywhere, and each of that, either it's a class or a data member or a member function, will be able to access that. So the keyword to make a class or a data member or a member function public is using a public keyword. So we use the public keyword and it will make that class or data member or a member function as public. So we'll shortly see example of this. Next access modifier is private members. Private members marked private can't be accessed by code in any class other than the class in which private member was declared. So I hope you got that if you make any member private, so that member can be a class, a data member, that is an instance variable, or a member functions, that is a method inside a class. So if you make any member as private, that means it cannot be accessed by code in any other class other than in its own class itself where it is declared. Fine. So if you make a class private, that means you cannot, create a, like, simply access it. So that means you cannot even inherit it, and the only object that you can create is within that class only. You cannot create any object outside that private class. Similarly, private data members, you cannot access those data members directly by creating a class object if they are private. Okay, and it is considered to be a good practice to make all the data members as private. Why? Because we don't want unnecessary details to be shown to the user, and just for the security purpose, we only want that there should be public method that can be used to access those private data members. That is because in case if we are not having those private means data members, then any object made of that class can access it and can change it in some other class. So for the reason of data encapsulation, we use private members. So where data encapsulation is a concept of OOPS that we will be covering shortly. Use of getters and setters. Well, whenever you make a private data member, then in order to access those private data member, we make getters and setters. Where getters and setters are nothing but public member function of a class that are used to access the private data members, and they are called so that user is not allowed to, or any other class object which is created anywhere else is not allowed to access those data member directly. So that's why we create getter and setter, so that whenever we need to use any of the data member, we can use them by creating a getter and setter. And there's a standard path. I mean, it should not be there like today, let's say there's some other user and it want to access my class. It should not be there that it's directly accessing the data. So because that will make my class very vulnerable. I mean, anyone can just simply, any object of that class can simply change that, and it won't be safe in case of a multi-threading environment and in other scenarios. So it is always welcomed, and it is always preferred to use getter and setter and make all your data members as private. So we'll be covering more of this topic when we study encapsulation. Okay guys, so the third access modifier we have is protected members. This makes the variable accessible to all other class inside the certification package, as well as inheritable by any subclass outside the package. For a subclass outside the package, the protected member can be accessed only through inheritance. Well, protected members have two types of access. One access is it is accessible to each and every class within that same package. Also, it is also accessible to a inherited class no matter what that inherited class is in a same package or other package. So right now, I'm not sure if you are available of the concept of inheritance because it's a OOPS concept. But in case if you are not aware of this concept, don't worry, we'll be covering that when we study the OOPS concept. As of now, just consider that inheritance, in a simple line, it's a concept where uh, there's a class and there's other class which can inherit the properties from that class. So it's similar to there's a father and there's a child. So the child actually inherits the father characteristics. So you can say similar way a class can also inherit characteristics of other class. So if a class is actually inheriting the characteristics of other class and the upper class, that is the base class, or I'll say the parent class, if it is protected or the data members are protected, then all the protected data members are accessible in the base class or the child class. And also, it is also accessible within the same package anywhere inside any class. Fine. So moving forward. Okay, the last access modifier is default members. Remember that if you don't type any access modifier before a class or a member declaration, the access control is default, which means package level. Where default is also a package level modification, but the name given to is not package members, but rather a default members, and it simply means that it is accessible anywhere in the package. So if there's a class outside the package, you cannot access the default member over there. But within the same package, any class can access default members. Fine. So this was the 4 access modifiers. Let's study some more details about them. Okay, so there's a question for you. Can access modifier be applied to local variables? Well, the answer is no. Okay, because you cannot make a local variable private. Why so? Because local variable will have a scope inside that local block as we have studied, because once that block comes out, once the execution from that block comes out, the local variable will not be available. So there's no use of making it private. It's anyway kind of, you can say default, or not even default. I would say it's only available within that local block. Outside that local block, the local variable has no scope. So there is no use of making it public, private, protected, or default, because irrespective of the scope, it won't be available outside that local block. So that's why we cannot actually put access modifiers on a local variable. Generally, when we create a local variable, we simply don't mention any access modifier. So that doesn't mean that it has a default access modifier, and that you can access it anywhere in a package. No, the local variable will still be only available within that local block. Okay. So the second fact is that there is only one modifier that can be applied to a local variable, that is final. Well, final is not an access modifier, but it is an access specifier. So we'll be studying about access specifier in a other tutorial. But as of now, you can see that a local variable can only be final. So what is final? Final, I think we'll be studying that concept later on. As of now, I think we should move forward. Okay, so this is a tabular representation of all the access members, and it is showing you like if we have a particular access modifier on a class, then who all can access it, where all it is visible. So let's see. If it is a public and let's see for public. So public, in case of a public from same class, yes, you can access it. From any class in the same package, again you can access it. From a subclass in the same package, again it's able to access it. And from subclass outside the same package, it is still available. From any non-subclass outside the package, yes, it is available. So it is available everywhere within your project if it is public. Fine. Okay, now I'm going to show you about the private. For private, the only availability is from the same class. So you can see in front of from the same class, the public is having yes mentioned, and for all like outside that class, it's no. So you cannot access it outside the class. It's only available within that same class. Fine. Now let's come to default. In case of default, you can see it's available in the same class, it's available in the same package. It is also available in the subclass in same package and also a subclass outside the package. Then no, because default is not available outside the package, and from any non subclass outside the package, again no, because so there are two restriction on default, that is it is not available outside the package or any subclass outside the package. So within a same package, default is available everywhere. Fine, let's come to protected now. Where protected has same rules as we applied to default plus the additional rule, that is from a subclass outside the package. So you can see from a subclass that is outside a package, it is available through inheritance. Fine, so I hope it is quite clear, and yeah, we'll be also doing an example to make it more clear. Okay, so there are two more things that I want to cover. One is the private method cannot be overridden as well. So yeah, if it's a private method, it cannot be overridden. And why? Because it is not accessible outside that class. So how will you be able to override it? Then we have a private keyword can also be applied to a constructor, and if you make a constructor private, you prevent it from being subclassed. Fine, so I hope it's clear, like private keyword can also be applied to a constructor. Well, what's a constructor? I think I'll be covering that in just upcoming tutorial. As of now, if you're not aware of the concept of constructor, it's fine. If you're not able to get this point, we'll be covering that later on in detail. But yeah, it just means that private modifier can be applied to a constructor, and if you make your constructor as private, that means your class won't be able to be subclassed. Okay guys, now we do an example to show you the use of access modifiers. So you remember in the last tutorial we were creating a vending machine processor. So let's do some changes into that to show you how it is available. So we had a class product, and in this class you can see I have made this class as public. So let's try to make it protected, or I would say private, and let's see what happens. You can see as soon as I made it private, it's giving me an error and it's saying me to remove invalid modifiers. Fine. And similarly, if I try to make it protected, again it's giving me error. So either it can be either public or yeah, default. So let me keep it as default this time. Fine, and let me go to vending machine IMPL. You can see in vending machine IMPL I'm getting a error. Why so? Because the scope of default is within a same package. So you can see this is a different package, com.java.vendingmachine.process, and com.java.vendingmachine.model is a different package. So the class that is defined in this package cannot be used in this package if it is default. So to make it available on a different package, so there are two options. Well, one option is to make it public and other is to make it protected and inherited, but a class cannot be protected. So the only option we are left is to make it public. Fine. So I think now it will work because we have made it public and you can see that there is no error in vending machine IMPL right now. Fine. Now, other thing I want to show you is we have three data members. Fine. Now let me show you an example where you can see these three are public, and since these are public, so these are accessible in any class irrespective of a package or not. So you can see over here we are accessing in this statement product.price and product.product name. So we are able to access a private member. Now let me make this product name as private. Okay, and see what's the impact now. You can see in vending machine IMPL I'm getting a error which says change the visibility of product name to public. Okay. Or it is also giving me another option to create getter or setter for product name. So since product name is private, I cannot access it directly with the object of this. Okay. Now let me change it to protected. You can see again I'm not able to access it. Why? Because protected members can only be accessed either in a same package or if a class is inheriting it. So let me try inheriting it. How to inherit a class? Simply put a extends keyword and put a class name that you want to inherit. So now also you can see that it is giving us an error, and since I have made it extends product, it is not working. Why so? Although we read that protected member can be accessed in a different package if there's a class inheriting it, and I have inherited a class. Well, the reason for that is the product name is actually not used as a inherited data member. In order to use it as a inherited data member, we need to create a vending machine IMPL object and then use it with vending machine IMPL. Let me just show you how I can use product name directly. Fine. So over here I have created a vending machine object. Vending machine IMPL VM equals to new vending machine IMPL. Now since I am inheriting a product class, so let me see like what all data members are available to me to inherit. So you can see I can inherit this product name. Now I am able to use it, and well, let's see. Yeah, now you can see if I'm using it with product name, it's not giving me any error because now it is used as an inherited data member. But it will give me an error with the product class object. That's because over here it is not an inherited data member. So it's true that protected data members can be used in a class which is inheriting it, but you have to make sure that when you are using it, it is actually the inherited data member, not like directly creating the object. So this is absolutely fine. I'm just removing it as of now. So now I'm going to like have shown you to make it protected. Now let me make it as default. So if I'm making it as default, and now I'm going back to my previous one, again you can see it's giving me an error. That's because the default can only be used in the same package. Fine. And now let me convert it to private. Now let me make all three as private. Now you can see like it's giving me an error for both of them, whatever I'm like using it, because private need to be only accessed within a same class, and over here I'm using it within a same class. It's absolutely fine because within a same class private can be used. Fine. Now how can I access these data members? I told you that as a concept of encapsulation we should always, and abstraction, we should always keep our data members as private. Now, the reason, like, why is it so? So that your object cannot directly, use these data members. So even if I'm inheriting this class and I tried to create vending machine IMPS object, I'll still be not able to access it. I need to put this restriction for my class safety. So now let me remove extends right now over here and let me simplify it. Yeah. Now you can see in order to access it, I have two options. It's saying me either change the visibility of product name to public, or you can create getter and setter of product name. So let's create getter and setter because that is a good practice to do. Whenever you need to access any private data members, always access it through a data member. So just I'm right clicking on it and I need to go to source. Inside source, you can see there's an option of generate getters and setters. Click on that. Just select the things for which you want getters and setters and click on OK. So you can see it has automatically created getters and setters for you. If you are not using Eclipse IDE and you are creating it in a notepad, no worries, you can still, create getters and setters by manually typing it. So the syntax for getters and setters would be like the method name will be for getter, it will be get, followed by your data member name. So my data member name was product name. And you can see over here we are using a camel case. The get G is in a lowercase, and from product name it's P is in uppercase. For setter, you need to use set followed by the your data member name. Fine. And in setter, actually, we usually set the product name. So we take our input as a product name and we are able to set it. And in getter is to retrieve the value. So that's why we are returning that product name. And the return type is string, which will be same as the data member return type. And same is done for price and quantity. So I hope you got the concept of getter and setter. And now we can access it using a getter and setter. So it's giving me an option to replace it with a getter and to replace it again with a getter. So by doing that, I will be able to, like simply replace it with getter and setter. So yeah, now this works perfectly fine and yeah, all the errors are gone. So this is a concept of access modifier. I hope you got it and let's meet in a next tutorial. Thank you.